They'll start with a Flea Flicker to open up the night. And he connects with Galladay.
Let's get it.
Perfect. Sup, everybody. This is Timmy B alongside with Joey D, and welcome to episode 2 of the Flea Flicker with Timmy B and Joey D, or I guess the first 2 videos will be Joey D and Timmy B. Joey D, you've been on the left for both videos, so we might have to change up the name, but how's it going, man? You ready to talk some AFC?
Oh, I love it, dude. Let's get after it. Let's have another great day. Football is almost here. We are so close. I'm loving this, Tim. Let's keep it going.
The countdown is on. But yeah, before we get into the AFC, make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel, and then hit the bell to be notified when new episodes of the Flea Flicker come out. But without further ado, Joe, let's hop into the AFC West. We'll start off there with the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. This is a very offensive division. Both teams, or all 4 teams, I should say, drafted running backs, receivers, quarterbacks in the draft. So let's start off with the AFC West. Joe, how do you see that breaking down this season?
All right. So I have this being one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL. I've actually got 3 teams in this division with a winning record and no team with the losing record. I got the Chargers in 4th place at 8-8, and I think that the Chargers are close. I've been watching Hard Knocks this year. They're playing really well. Tyrod Taylor, he's got a real good command of that offense, and they got some weapons there, both on offense and defense. The biggest thing is they got to stay healthy, man. They've had a lot of problems with that the last few years. And, already no Derwin James again this year, which is, just such a huge blow and, so sad to see. I mean, that's terrible. We all want to watch the best players play. But I still have the Chargers going 8-8, having a solid year, but, falling victim to a competitive division.
Yeah, I actually have the Chargers. I'm kind of the opposite with you, so it's good that we're starting off strong.
All right.
I think it's going to be like last year. I think, the Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders are all just going to be around 8-8, 7-9, 6-10. I can make the argument for putting them in either way, but I have the Chargers finishing second at 8-8. I'm just going with experience. I mean, they were in the playoffs a couple of years ago. They did beat the Ravens on the road, and they were a good team. But I just think that drafting Justin Herbert, I think that's going to be a lot on the shoulders of Tyrod. I still think they have a good team in Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They have a great defensive line. They drafted Kenneth Murray, the linebacker out of Oklahoma, and they have a decent secondary. I think they are going to bounce back a little bit and not be embarrassed, or, they were the favorite last year for a lot of people in the Super Bowl. I just don't think that they're going to click that well this year, so I have them at 8-8. And then I think next year is the year that they finally return, and potentially with Tyrod or with Justin Herbert at the helm.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see this division going a lot of different ways. I really like this division. I like a lot of the teams, and I mean, there's definitely no one in this division that, I dislike or, wouldn't be, happy to see be successful. I got the next 2 teams both going 10-6. I'll start with the Raiders. I really think that, the Raiders are a real good team this year. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They've got a really young receiving core with Hunter Renfrow essentially as the veteran with 1 year under his belt, coming off of injury. But, he was looking good last year while he was healthy, had some good chemistry with Derek Carr. And then they have the early draft pick in Henry Ruggs, who is going to stretch the field and he's going to make plays with the ball in his hands. And then on the other side, on the outside, we got our boy out of South Carolina, Bryan Edwards.
Cox.
Let's go. Go Cox. He is going to feast in this offense. It's really unfortunate Tyrell Williams got injured because he made a lot of plays last year. But it does open the door for Bryan Edwards and that young receiving core to really be successful and just develop that chemistry with Derek Carr right now, right off the bat. I mean, on top of that, they got Darren Waller. And I really think that Rod Marinelli, bringing him in on the defensive side of the ball, is going to bring a lot of improvements over there. They've invested a lot of resources in the defense recently. And I think that defense, while I don't think it will be great, I could see it being top 15. I could see both their offense and defense being top 15, as their floor, honestly. I could see these both, kind of going one way or the other. And it really starts with the trenches. And on offense, they really have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm a little indifferent on the defense. I think that they have invested the right pieces and Rod Marinelli. I have them being last in the division at 6-10. I feel like they're like a poor man's Cowboys, where their offense is going to be pretty well. They're going to put up some points, but their defense is going to struggle a little bit. And like I said, I can make the argument for them being second in this division. I just have them last. I think that they're still another year away from actually being competing. The move to Vegas could also be a factor in, the Death Star. So that's my thoughts on the Raiders. I mean, I could definitely see them being, top 10 to top 15 defense, but I think that they're going to struggle initially. But I'm very excited for this offense and this young receiving core. So that's my take on the Raiders. And then your other team at 10-6 is the Denver Broncos. Now, does the news of Von Miller that came out last night about his injury, does that affect your prediction at all? Or are you still going strong at 10-6?
It definitely has an effect. I mean, I'm not as confident in it as before because I was excited to see Von Miller on one side, Bradley Chubb on the other. They got Justin Simmons back there at safety. They've got some playmakers and an exciting defense. But what I'm really excited to see, either way is Drew Lock with a year under his belt with some weapons, man. This offense has some weapons. I mean, you got Cortland Sutton. Is that starting wide receiver?
Yep.
Cameron Sutton or Cortland Sutton?
No, Cortland Sutton. You got it.
I was right. Dang it. I trust myself, Joseph. All right, Cortland Sutton, number one receiver. This man, he reminds me of Alshon Jeffrey and even more athletic, honestly. He can make some plays with the ball in his hands. And, then you got Jerry Jeudy on the other side, who is going to win with his route running almost every rep. I mean, he's going to be open. And then they got Noah Fant in the center of the field at tight end, just working that defense. And then they have two really good running backs in Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. I mean, you can do a lot of things with that offense, a lot of different looks, and get a lot of people involved. I think Drew Lock, I mean, he was a winner in Missouri, and he was successful when he played last year. He had some very nice plays and some he went 4-1, was that right, at the end of the season, if I remember correctly?
The Broncos and Drew Lock were having some good offenses. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but 4-1 sounds right to me. I mean,
he was really impressive. I think that offense is they're coming for Mahomes. I mean, they have to bring that offense to be able to compete in the shootout with the Chiefs. I don't think they're there yet, but I'm really excited to see what they do this year. I think that Drew Lock could have a breakout year, and the Broncos offense could surprise a lot of people. So yeah, I got them going 10-6. I'll still stick with it. I'll stick with my gut at 10-6. I think the offense is going to win a lot of shootouts this year. But I am real disappointed to not be able to see Vaughn and Bradley Chubb playing off the edge with each other.
Yeah, and you nailed it, trying to take down the Chiefs. I think that a lot of the AFC West said, we're not stopping their offense, so we're just going to try to win a shootout with them. I mean, like I said, every team drafted running backs, quarterbacks, receivers. So every other team bolstered up. I have the Broncos at 7-9, finishing third in the division. Without Von Miller, that's going to be huge. But I am excited for Bradley Chubb to kind of be on his own. I feel like that's one of the reasons why they drafted him, just being like, we need a Von Miller replacement in a couple of years, so let's get Chubb now. I just think it's been such a weird offseason with the pandemic and everything being virtual and, practice. That could be a lot for Drew Lock to make some early connections with Jerry Jeudy, as well as second-round pick KJ Hamler out of Penn State.
That's right.
Do think Melvin Gordon could be one of the best free agent signings in the offseason. They got a well-established running back at number one in Gordon, and then they have Phillip Lindsay at number two. This is going to be a fun offense to watch. The thing, like you said, they're going to win a lot of shootouts, is can the defense hold up for a handful of games where they can win, 20-14, 20-17 instead of 35-30. So that's going to be the big question for the Broncos. I can easily see them being 10-6, 9-7, but for this year right now, I just can't trust them right now, so I have them going 7-9. And then let's just address one of the best teams in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champs, signing Mahomes to 55 years, $8 billion contract this year. And I think drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be good, being compared to Brian Westbrook from Andy Reid himself.
Yes.
That's huge. And they have a nice young core with Mahomes, Edwards-Helaire, playoff Damian opting out this year, but he's still there. Kelsey and Hill and even Watkins. I think all those players are locked up for the next at least 3 seasons. So that's a huge core.
And Mecole Hardman.
Oh my God, Mecole Hardman.
It's ridiculous. They have so much speed. That offense is unreal. I mean, they were one of, if not the best offense in the NFL last year, and they brought the same team back and added Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, it's not fair. Like,
no,
that offense is ridiculous. I mean, and then they brought Chris Jones back too, and Tyrann Mathieu still there. I mean, it's the same team as last year. You know, they're still loaded at the skill players on both the offense and defense. You know, their offensive line is really going to be the key. You know, I'm really interested to see how they do with one of their players opting out. I don't think I can pronounce his name, even if I could remember it.
It's like Duvernay something or something
Lauren,
like that.
Yeah, he's a doctor, and he's opting out to continue, you know, treating his patients, which is, you know, just extremely admirable. But I mean, it wasn't one of the best offensive lines before that. So, you know, having Mahomes makes things a lot easier. And, you know, on top of that, Andy Reid, who's one of the best play callers of all time in the NFL. And I mean, it's just exciting to watch. I've got them going 14-2.
I have them going 13-3. I'm with you. They could easily be 14-2, maybe even 15-1, 16-0. But we're going to be a little conservative and go 13-3 on my end. My big question is the defense. I mean, they do have Chris Jones and Frank Clark still. They still have Honey Badger back there and running around safety. You know, there's gonna be a time where the offense isn't going to quite click, and they're going to have to, you know, maybe only score 14 or 17 points. And right now with that defense, I don't see them winning. I mean, we saw last year in the playoffs, they went down 24-0, 20-0. You know, they went down double digits in all games. You know, that's going to happen a couple of times, and not every time Mahomes is going to lead them to victory. Hopefully it's against the Ravens in week 3 or the playoffs. But, you know, there's going to be a time where, you know, Mahomes is going to be human. So that's the big question for me. But I still see the Chiefs being 13-3 and having the best record in the NFL this season and looking to repeat as Super Bowl champs.
Yeah. I've got you right there. I agree 100% with that statement.
Awesome. Well, then let's just get the ball rolling down to the AFC South. Houston Texans and their head coach and general manager trade wizard Bill O'Brien traded DeAndre Hopkins and didn't get a first-round pick, but they locked up Laramie Tunsil. They locked up Deshaun Watson. The Colts got Phillip Rivers at quarterback. The Titans, we all know what happened with the, you know, Titans in the playoffs last year. We'll just ignore that. But they signed Derrick Henry. They still think Tannehill is going to be the quarterback. The Jaguars are tanking. They're trading everybody away, almost for free, basically. So let's break down the AFC South. Me personally, I think it's kind of like the NFC North. It could be interesting. It could be boring, as you said, where every team's could be like 9-7 except for the Jaguars. And it's like, who's going to win the tiebreakers between these 2 or 3 teams to win the division or even get the wild card spot? So what are your thoughts on the division?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, it's not going to be the Jaguars. I mean, you know, there's just no talent really anywhere. I mean, they've got some guys at wide receiver. Outside of that on offense, like who is it? Like I don't know who these players are. I mean, they got a couple guys on defense, you know, and Josh Allen and geez, like I'm struggling now again. I mean, they just signed a linebacker.
They got that guy from UCLA. Who's that one guy?
A defensive back? Like
that's like the linebacker.
I can't remember. I really can't remember. I mean, the Jaguars are just so uninspiring. Like I just don't even want to remember them right now. I mean, my goodness.
Miles Jack. That's
okay.
Jack.
Yeah. Miles Jack. There you go. Yeah, he's solid. Is Telvin Smith, like, he opted out before the option to opt out even, like, became a thing? Like, what is going on with him?
I mean, kudos to him. He's probably like, I don't want to play for the Jaguars. I mean,
yeah,
I have them
honestly.
at 1-15. They're going to win one game. They might win no games, but I just don't. This team is bad. And, you know, when they traded Ronnie Harrison last week to the Browns, He went to the Browns, and then he said, I'm finally glad I'm at a team that has one common goal. And everybody was like, dude, you went to the Browns. Like, that's how bad, like, the Jaguars front office
Right.
and team is. They don't have a culture. That might be one of the worst in the NFL.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I mean, I don't like their coaching staff. I think Marone's probably gone this year, but I don't like their front office either. I mean, it seems like they're tanking, and I wouldn't count on it to pay off if I was a Jaguars fan. I have them winning 4 games this year. I do like Gardner Minshew. I don't think he's going to be enough, and I don't think that he's someone that you can invest in long term and be
Mhm.
successful. But I think he can win you a couple games and make some plays out there. And they've got the wide receivers to help them out a little bit in that regard. So I've got them winning 4 games, but being the worst team in the AFC.
All right. Well, I got that winning 1 game. Let's get out of this Lions hole. We're not going to talk about 10 minutes
Right.
about the Jaguars. So now we're at the other 3 teams. Like I said, I could see all these 3 teams going like 9-7, and it's just who wins the tiebreakers. I personally have the Colts winning the division at 9-7. What about yourself? Break down the other 3 teams for me.
Yeah. So I got the Texans coming in third at 7-9. I really do not like the Texans very much this year. I don't think Bill O'Brien is capable of managing both either a roster or a front office. He can't manage anything right now. So I think that he's got to go soon. He just seems to be bungling and just swinging for the fences, making all these big moves that I don't see paying off at all. I mean, your job is to surround Deshaun Watson with talent and protection. They did get Laramie Tunzel, but he didn't really. He was okay last year. He wasn't as good as I think what they gave up for him. And the rest of that offensive line isn't really that great. And then losing DeAndre Hopkins, adding Brandon Cooks instead, I don't like that at all. I mean, not only is the talent drop off, so much there, but now you have your 2 starting wide receivers and Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks just constantly injured. There's not going to be really anybody for Deshaun Watson to throw the ball to. I don't think that David Johnson really has much left in the tank. And I mean, they've just, not really added that much to the defense. They lost DJ Reader this year. I mean, they still haven't really replaced Clowney. I really am not a fan of the Texans at all. I got them going 7-9, coming in third place.
Yeah, I actually have them coming in second at 9-7, just losing the tiebreaker to the Colts. But I think you nailed it all in the head. Thank God they have Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I mean, I know I'm bringing up the schedule again, but they could easily start 0-4. Their first 4 weeks are the Chiefs tonight, then the Ravens, then the Steelers, then the Vikings. That's going to be a tough first 4 games. Deshaun Watson's probably going to win a game or 2 there. But the real question is, are they healthy? If they can be healthy, I think that they can go 9-7 and be a legit threat in the AFC, or even better than 9-7. But they're going to get injured, and they don't have any defensive help. Once a guy or 2 goes down, they really need to make some serious defensive moves, or this could be the end of the Houston Texans for the next year or 2. And I don't know if Bill O'Brien's going to be the general manager to make those moves and be smart with it. But I think this is going to be the last year for the Texans, playoff reign, so to speak. I have them being a wild card team at 9-7. My third place team is the Tennessee Titans. I have them at 8-8. We're just going to, again, ignore what happened in the playoff game last year against the Ravens, but I think they're very similar to the Bears. That defense is going to carry them to being somewhat relevant in the month of December and maybe for a playoff spot, especially since they just got Jadeveon Clowney. But offensively, aside from Derrick Henry and maybe A.J. Brown, there's not a lot in the passing game, and you can't rely on Derrick Henry for the entire season. For a couple of games in the playoffs, sure. And I'm not so sure Tannehill is the right answer at quarterback for the Titans. He had an amazing second half, no doubt, but can he extend that for 16 games while also not giving Derrick Henry 45 touches a game? I don't know. I need to see a little bit more from the passing game from the Titans. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that you're saying right there. I have them are going second place in the division and making a wild card spot at 9-7.
Okay.
I'm not high on Ryan Tannehill, and I feel like there's got to be some regression between him and Derrick Henry this year. I mean, I love that style of a team. I love Mike Vrabel as a coach, and I love what he's putting together there in Tennessee. I mean, they have a strong defense, and they're a smash mouth offense. They're just a smash mouth team. Let's come out here and let's out muscle the other team. Let's run all over them and ruin their nights. I love it. I like you said though. They don't have a ton of weapons on offense. I like AJ Brown. I like Derrick Henry. I'm not sold on Tannehill. I do love the defense, but I mean, we'll see. It is they lost some talent on defense too, and Jarrell Casey. I mean, I don't know why you let a guy like him go. I mean, I guess replacing him with Clowney does help a lot because he's a very versatile defender. You can do a lot of different things on defense there, but they did lose a couple pieces, but I think that at the end of the day, Mike Vrabel is going to coach them to 9 wins and a wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, they remind me a lot of like some Joe Flacco Ravens teams where in years or games that, the Ravens didn't make the playoffs or struggled a little bit, they knew that Flacco was only going to throw 20, 25 times a game. So if they stopped the run, Flacco wasn't going to win. There were many games the Ravens lost when Flacco had 45, 50 passing attempts, and he's just not that type of quarterback. And I think if a team can stop Derrick Henry, I don't know if I can trust Tannehill right now. So that's just my final piece on the Titans. Now, looks like we both have the Colts winning the division. I'm curious to hear your thoughts first. Why do you have the Colts winning the division this season?
So I like Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis a lot. I think that was a phenomenal fit and a great, just very logical move. I mean, you look at what went wrong for him with the Chargers. I mean, he didn't have a strong offensive line, and they didn't have a consistent run game. He was throwing the ball a lot and turning the ball over a lot. I think that this year in Indianapolis, I mean, they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They have 2, maybe even 3 pretty good running backs. And, Marlon Mack, who, if he can stay healthy, and was fed the ball consistently, he's a 1,000-yard runner. But they drafted this guy, Jonathan Taylor, who is going to take a lot of those touches away from Marlon Mack. And if Marlon Mack goes down, Jonathan Taylor is going to take that backfield over. And I think he's going to dominate it. So it'll be really interesting to see how that backfield plays out with that 1 and 2. But then you got Nyheim Hines also there, who is going to have a role, as the receiving back. And I think Phillip Rivers is going to use him kind of in that Austin Eckler role. And they added Michael Pittman. If T.Y. Hilton can stay healthy, they got Jack Doyle. They got some guys for Phillip Rivers to spread the ball around to, but I don't think he's going to be asked to do as much. And then I really like their defense with Darius Leonard, DeForest Buckner. They got a couple guys back there who I really think are playmakers. And, I love Frank Reich as a head coach as well. I think that he knows how to bring that team together and get them all on the same page. And then, I mean, you got Jacoby Brissett as a backup quarterback. He's still there. I mean, if Rivers goes down or, is playing poorly, you have a guy who, he has a relatively high floor, but, a relatively low ceiling. You know what you're going to get with Jacoby Brissett. He's not going to dominate a game, but, he can be a game manager if you need him to for a game or two.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on Frank Wright. I love his offensive system. I like that, he's kind of like a Bruce Arians where no matter where he goes, no matter who his quarterback is, that offense is going to put up some numbers, move the ball, and put the team in a position to win. You nailed everything I had about the offense, just looking at my notes right here. Michael Pittman Jr., Paris Campbell, I hear, is having a pretty good offseason. And then with that front 7, DeForest Buckner, Justin Houston, and Darius Leonard. And then I'm a big fan of their secondary too. I know Xavier Rhodes has, been kind of off the wagon the last couple of years, but they also have Malik Hooker at safety and then Rock Ya-Sin. That's just a great name on the other side of Xavier Rhodes. Yeah. So I think that this team will go 9-7. They're going to beat the Texans in whatever tiebreaker it is. But I'm excited for the Colts this year. I think Phillip Rivers is going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be great to see him with an offensive line. Maybe after week 1 or week 2 on the bench, you might just see him being like looking at the plays and seeing how much time he had, just being like, oh, finally.
Oh yeah. His jersey's going to be cleaner than it's ever been.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So that's the AFC South that we got here. Now let's move to the AFC East, Joe. Now there's no Tom Brady. Finally, Bills, Jets, Dolphins fans are, rejoicing here. There's no more Tom Brady, but like the Patriots winning the AFC and being in the Super Bowl, until it doesn't happen, I'm going to keep picking them to win the division. I don't know about yourself, but until I see the Patriots not win the division with Bill Belichick as the head coach, I'm picking them to win the division at 10-6. I still think the Bills are a great team. They're still going to make the playoffs, but until it doesn't happen, I'm going to pick them.
I'm right there with you. I also have the Patriots going 10-6 and winning the division. I mean, we saw what Bill Belichick did when Tom Brady went down for the season with Matt Castle. I mean, he won 11 games and, got to the playoffs. They still got the number 1 seed, or they won the division again that year. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's been able to accomplish over his whole career. And yeah, I'm just not going to pick against him until I see proof otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I want to stat correct you right there, Joe, because I do know this. That year was 2008, and the Patriots are like one of 3 teams to go 11-5 and not make the playoffs. That was the year the Dolphins won the division, and that was
really?
Joe Flacco's first playoff game. That's probably the only reason why I know this, was in Miami, and we won. That was the first game on his rookie year AFC Championship. So they actually didn't make the playoffs, but still 11-5. You would assume making the playoffs, but when you have rookie Joe Flacco, doing his thing,
what are you gonna do?
But yeah, I like it. I think N'Keal Harry's going to have a great year. I mean, they have Cam Newton at quarterback, so we know that they have an MVP caliber person at quarterback. They got Sony Michel, James White still Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry. So I think this offense is going to be a little bit more fun. I think the last couple of years of Brady have been kind of bland, and I think that they kind of built that system being like, hey, we know our defense is good enough. Tom, just get us 20 points. We're going to win the game. Where now with Cam Newton, it'd be like, hey, man, we can score some points and have a little fun, get creative. So I'm excited for them. They still have Bill Belichick. They still have a Bill Belichick defense. Now, they do have one of the more opt-outs in the NFL, especially Patrick Chung and Donta Hightower. I mean, it's Belichick defense. I don't see too much of an issue, but it could be, much like my prediction with the AFC South, where the Patriots and Bills finish with the same record. Patriots just win the tiebreakers. However, I have the Bills at 9-7 in second place. Once again, returning to the playoffs. Let's see, where are my notes on the Bills? Bills. Okay, here we go. I'm going to bring up the schedule again. They have a very tough schedule again. They have the NFC West. But I love Josh Allen. Now they got him a legit threat at wide receiver and Stephon Diggs. They drafted Zach Moss to go with Devin Singletary. So this could be a fun little offense, especially with John Brown and Cole Beasley and their tight end, Dawson Knox. I'm a big fan of Dawson Knox. And then it's a Sean McDermott defense. They're going to have a lot of fun. They have a great secondary with White, Poyer, and Hyde, and a beefy D-line. So I'm excited for Bills Mafia. I think, like I said, until they dethrone the Patriots as division champs, I'm going to pick the Patriots to be the division champs.
Yeah, no, I agree with all those points. I mean, this is a very interesting team. They've definitely got a lot of talent, a lot of young talent, on both sides of the ball. I think Sean McDermott's done a great job of, establishing a winning culture since he's gotten there. Stephon Diggs definitely helps. They don't really have any excuses left for Josh Allen. I mean, he's got, weapons on offense. I mean, Cole Beasley and John Brown as your 1 and 2 is one thing, but now you got Stephon Diggs as a 1, John Brown as a 2, Cole Beasley in the slot. That's a pretty good receiving core. And then Dawson Knox, and then a couple pretty solid running backs as well, and a solid offensive line. I mean, he's got to start hitting on those passes. So I think this is a really big year for him because there's just no excuses for him after this. We'll see what happens, but let's transition over to one of the more interesting teams, I think, about this season. What do you think about Miami?
So I'm predicting the Dolphins are going to go 5-11, which is the same record as last year, but they're going to be better. And by better, I mean they're not going to be losing 59-10 unless they play the Ravens again. Then it will definitely be 59-10. But they're going to be competitive in almost every game. They're not going to go 0-8 or 0-9 like they did last year and be like the laughing stock of the NFL and, the tank for Tua. It worked, but they had a great second half, a great December. They They basically gave the Chiefs a first-round bye, beating the Patriots on the road. So I think that they're going to be 5-11 still. They're still going to struggle, especially with that tough schedule, but they're going to be better. They're going to be competing more. They're going to be in more games. And I think once the shift happens to Tua, maybe we can see a little bit of an uptick, but I still think that they're a year away, giving Tua a full offseason, hopefully in a non-pandemic, for them to really take the next step forward. I love Flores as a coach, and I love what he's doing with that defense without Minka Fitzpatrick as well. But I'm excited for the Dolphins. I still think they're going to go 5-11 like they did last year, but a better 5-11.
Right. Yeah, I got them taking a little bit of a step from last year. I got them going 7-9. I mean, you know, the whole draft, I love their draft. I mean, Tua early, and then they just started adding O-line. I mean, you got to protect your quarterback, especially a guy like Tua. That was a problem for them last year. And, I mean, they worked free agency and trades for running back, which I love. I mean, they did not spend high resources at all in the run game, and now they got two different backs in Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, who I think are going to be a lot more productive than who they had out there last year, as well as, you know, with an improved offensive line. You know, and then I really like Devontae Parker on the outside this year with Preston Williams on the other side. I think both those guys are going to make some plays. And like you said, that defense, you know, they're adding some talent there. They spent a lot of money on Byron Jones, but he's worth it. And, you know, Brian Flores is getting those guys ready to play every week, and is just really changing the culture. I do think they're a year away. You know, their secondary is improved, but still has a couple questions. Although, you know, those two corners right there in Byron Jones and who's the other one on the outside? Xavier Howard?
Xavier Howard, is that his name? Or did he move on from it?
I believe so.
Right. Dolphins, depth chart. Yeah, Xavier Howard, and then they have Eric Rowe at safety. You know, Bobby McCain, Kyle Van Noy, so Shaq Lawson. So they have a good little group of guys right there. I just still think, you know, they're going to be a year away when the schedule lightens up a little bit and, you know, in a non-pandemic offseason. I'm excited for the Dolphins. I'm with you. I think they got a lot of explosive talent at the receiver position, especially at running backs too. I mean, Jordan Howard, after he left Chicago, and Breida and San Fran, I feel like they never really got an opportunity to be that guy. And, you know, now Miami, even though they're competing, they're going to have a lot of fun. And they still have Fitzmagic. I mean, come on, it's Fitzmagic.
Yeah, gotta love him. Gotta love him, dude. So fun to watch.
So now let's go from the hype of the Dolphins to I don't even know what's happening here, but Joe, talk to me about the New York Jets. Where do you have them? I have them at 4-12. Maybe I mean this team is going to be bad.
Yeah, I got them at 6-10. I mean, God, Adam Gase is not a good head coach. He has not done a good job anywhere he's gone. And I was a little bit higher on Sam Darnold than I think a lot of other people were. And I just feel like he hasn't really gotten a fair shake since he's been there. I mean, you know, he hasn't really had very good weapons. He hasn't really had a good O-line or a great run game. And he hasn't had a good coach calling the plays for him. So, you know, it hurts me for Sam Darnold. But yeah, I don't see this team doing well. They improved a little bit on the O-line. But I mean, you lost your best player on the whole team, who was the face of the franchise, and Jamal Adams. And I mean, I think that's going to have a huge effect on the defense. He was so versatile and could do so much. You know, it's going to have a ripple effect everywhere. Yeah, I got them going 6-10, last place.
I'm with you. I'm really high on Sam Darnold as well. You know, I got a lot of Jets fans who are really high on him, and I think he is a great quarterback, and I think he is the answer for the New York Jets franchise, but I don't think Adam Gase is the right person to run this offense. And I think, you know, Sam Darnold's going to have a good year, and they still are going to go 4-12, 5-11. And I think the front office is smart enough to realize that, you know, with Sam Darnold a couple more years on his deal, third year picking up the fifth-year option, they're probably going to pick it up and say, all right, well, we're going to hire a coach that you want. We're going to hire a coach that we need you to excel in. They're going to fire Adam Gase. So I think next year the Jets could take that leap, and you nailed it. Trading Jamal Adams away is going to be huge for that defense, huge for the culture. They don't have a leader on defense right now. No idea who their team captains are going to be. And then we need to see a lot from Le'Veon Bell. They paid so much for running back. We need him to start clicking in that offense a little bit more. But I love their rookie wide receiver and Denzel Mims out of Baylor. Hopefully he can have a good year. I love Herndon as the tight end. I'm not going to talk about Perriman, that waste of first-round pick by the Ravens. But they have a nice little core for Darnold. And, hopefully they can put it together, but not until Adam Gase goes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, I guess let's move on over to your own division. I'll let you kind of take the reins here. I know you let me handle the East yesterday. So yeah, go for it, buddy.
Well, I think what's best for us, Joe, is, I think we both have the best rivalry in NFL as the top two teams in the Ravens and Steelers. So why don't we get the Ohio teams out of the way? We'll talk about them first, and then we'll, get into the Ravens and the Steelers and the Big Trust Brigade. I'm going to start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. They drafted Joe Burrow. I still think that they're going to finish at the bottom of the division. I have them at 4-12. I can easily see them being 5-11 or 6-10. But playing the Ravens twice, the Steelers twice, it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be a tough first year for Joe Burrow. But I love the pieces they put in place with T. Higgins at wide receiver in the second round, signing Joe Mixon to an extension. This is going to be a lot of a fun offense to watch in the future. I think this year you could see some rookie struggles from Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I do have them going 6-10, last place in the division. But I mean, Burrow is gonna change that culture from the start. He already is. He's just been on fire at training camp. They've got some good weapons there. I really think Tyler Boyd is gonna have a phenomenal year and be the Bengals version of LSU's Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Joe Burrow loves feeding the slot wide receivers, and Tyler Boyd is going to feast over the middle. AJ Green on the outside, if he can stay healthy, he's going to make plays. I think that offense is going to surprise some people. I think Joe Mixon is going to have a little bit more room to work with, since now he's actually got a quarterback that can take a little bit of a threat away from him, because the last few years everyone's stacking the box against him. You can't run the ball. I think that's going to help out the whole team tremendously. I mean, the defense is getting a little bit better. If that offensive line can, get healthy and come together, they've spent a lot of draft picks on the offensive line, and it really hasn't come together. So, I mean, they've still got some work to do on the defense, but I love what they're doing in Cincinnati right now. I think they're definitely on the upswing.
Yeah, I'm definitely riding the Tyler Boyd train too. I mean, I know I mentioned it to you in our fantasy draft last week, but I think of like 60 or 65% of Joe Burrow's touchdown passes last year were to the slot receiver. So that's only great news for Tyler Boyd. They have the replacement in AJ Green with T. Higgins. So I think this is exciting. But now let's go up whatever interstate is in Ohio, from Cincinnati up to Cleveland. Odell Beckham recently in the news for some number twos, we'll say. I have the Browns improving under Kevin Stefanski. I think that it's going to be a fun offense to watch. And I still think, again, it's going to take a year for Baker and crew to kind of click with Stefanski's game plan. I have them going 8-8, finishing third in the division, being average. And then next year, 2-3 years later is when the Browns hype is going to start and going to be a serious threat for not only, the rest of the division, but myself as a Ravens fan.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I got them also going 8-8, third place in the division. There's just no excuses for Baker at all this year. I mean, he showed that he has the talent his rookie year, and then last year, he obviously regressed tremendously and did not have a very good year. But how much of that was Freddie Kitchens? He was terrible. He was an awful head coach, and I think Kevin Stefanski is going to have just a huge improvement in that regard. I think Nick Chubb is going to have a great year. They're going to find a way to get Kareem Hunt involved as well. But Nick Chubb will be that workhorse. There's no doubt there. But I mean, they got two great receivers in Odell and Landry. They just spent money on Austin Hooper. They still have Njoku. They've spent a lot of money on the offensive line. There are no excuses for Baker Mayfield. So if he doesn't have, a good year this year, we'll be questioning his long-term future in the NFL. Because, I mean, if you can't succeed with this offense, I just really don't see in what offense you're going to succeed.
Yeah, and it's from Stefanski coming over from Minnesota, where he had Diggs and Thielen, Odell, Landry. They had Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb. They have Kareem Hunt, who's more of a pass catching back, something that the Vikings didn't have every single year. So I think it fits well for Stefanski. And then, the AFC North has one of the easiest schedules this year. I believe the Ravens have the easiest, and I think the Steelers would have had the easiest, but playing the Ravens twice kind of bumped that up. So this is, I'm with you. This is a make or break year for the Browns and Baker Mayfield. I mean, if they can show any sort of promise, then they're going to keep with him. But the schedule's only going to get tougher. When you have the easiest schedule, it's not going to be the easiest next year. So that's all I have to say about the Browns. Now let's move on to the two best teams in the division, the greatest rivalry in the current NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. We'll hold off on the Ravens for just a second. I have the Steelers bouncing back a little bit with a healthy Ben Roethlisberger. I have them being a wild card team and going 10-6. I mean, last year they were 8-8, and they were going to be the 7th seed this year with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. So a healthy Ben, I think, is at least 2 games better. But I think a lot of people are really riding high on Ben Roethlisberger this year, not only being healthy, but I think that they're going to be his elite level when the Killer Bees were here. He doesn't have Le'Veon Bell. James Conner's okay. He's not great. He's no Bell. He's no Antonio Brown. They do have Juju. But, it's not going to be the same. The offense is taking a little step back in terms of personnel for Ben Roethlisberger. I still think he's going to be good enough for a 2-game win improvement. Arguably the best defense in the NFL. I mean, what a trade that they made for Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think they went from 22 points a game to 15 after their trade, a whole touchdown better. So it's going to be a scary defense again to go up against. But the Steelers, I see them 10-6 as a wild card team.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with pretty much everything. They could be really great, or I think they could bust big. I mean, we don't know what Roethlisberger is going to look like. Coming back from the injury at his age, to his elbow on his throwing arm. I mean, that's no small feat to overcome. When you're getting up there in age, and then you got to throw the ball, 500 times, this year. I mean, we'll see what happens, but. I mean, I got them going 9-7 and just missing out on the playoffs.
I like that. I like that.
I mean, I love the AFC. It's so competitive. I mean, there are so many good teams. I don't think that 9-7 is gonna get it done this year to get into the playoffs, even with the wild card spot, or even if with that extra wild card spot. But like I was saying, I really like you said, that defense is phenomenal. They're gonna ball. Minka's gonna make plays. T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, Devin Bush. They got talent at every level, and I'm so excited to see what that defense does. But I just don't really know how good that Steelers offense is gonna be, because like you said, I don't really love those weapons. I mean, I don't know if Juju's really a number 1. I think he's a high-end number 2, but if he's the number 1 and, teams are rotating coverage his way, I don't really know if he can beat it. I don't love their number 2 and Deontay Johnson. They got Vance McDonald, who I like. I don't love, James Conner, same thing. I think that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be asked to do a lot this year, and I think it's going to be a lot on his shoulders coming back from that injury at his age.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all the things that you said. Now let's make our way to, the AFC North champs, the Baltimore Ravens, the Big Trust Brigade. Come see me at the bank. Whoop, whoop. Joe, last year, the Ravens won 14-2. It was honestly one of the more fun seasons being a Ravens fan to watch in the regular season. Not because I thought that we would dominate. I mean, we played the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Bills, the Patriots, pretty much all back to back to back, each week going into the game. And I'm sure when the Eagles were 13-3 in their Super Bowl run, you were probably like, this could be the game that we lose to the Redskins. So, that was kind of my thought. And I didn't get really confident until, December, after we kind of took down that tough stretch of 49ers, Patriots, Bills. I'm like, all right, this is legit. After that Rams Monday night game, I was all in on us, blowing people out. And then we got a little slice of humble pie in the playoffs against Titans at home. Was not fun to be at. We traded away Hayden Hurst, our guy, Gamecock guy, bias aside from the Gamecocks. It was a great trade. Got us rookie J.K. Dobbins, running back from Ohio State. The Falcons got their tight end. We also traded for Calais Campbell from the Jaguars for a 5th-round pick. So this team's going to be good again. And, the big question is, can Lamar repeat as an MVP? I think he can. I think there will be some regression, with, teams starting to figure out our offense a little bit more. But, regressing from 14-2, in order to not make the playoffs, we would need to have an epic collapse, which would basically being Lamar gets hurt. I mean, you said it, 9-7, 10-6, we would have to lose a whole month of games just to get to that point. So I still have the Ravens going 12-4. Bias aside, they're still one of the best teams in the division. I mean, Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, adding J.K. Dobbins, Hollywood Brown is going to have a great year receiving. Miles Boykin's going to improve. Mark Andrews is now the tight end one officially. We did lose Hall of Famer and Marshall Yanda on our offensive line, but we still have Ronnie Stanley. We still have Orlando Brown Jr. We still have a great tackles. Defensively, we got Calais Campbell. We signed Derek Wolfe. Our linebackers are the weak spot, but we drafted Patrick Queen in the first round. Our issue the last couple of years has been getting to the quarterback. I think those 3 additions are going to be huge. And then even though we lost Earl Thomas to some locker room drama, we'll say, we still have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. We have Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Tavon Young. I mean, Jimmy Smith is our 4th cornerback. You know how many teams would love to have Jimmy Smith as a starting cornerback? And then we got Chuck Clark at safety. So I do think that we're going to regress a little bit, but regressing from 14-2 will still probably put us at 11-5, 12-4, and we're still going to make another deep playoff run. Joe, your thoughts on the Ravens?
I agree with all of that. I also had them going 12-4. I do think there is going to be a degree of regression from Lamar in the offense. The only questions that I have about this team are kind of with the wide receivers. I do like Marquise Brown a lot. It's just, kind of beyond that, how much of this are we, putting on Lamar's shoulders and asking him to do? Like if we can surround him with a little bit more talent, try to make his job a little bit easier, I think that's going to help out a lot down the road. But right now, coming off, last year, him being the MVP, and them having a pretty similar offense to this year, they're going to have a pretty similar offense to the one they had last year. So, I feel like there's a lot of film on them this year, and teams are going to be able to scheme to slow them down a little bit more than they did last year. And then, my questions on the defense are just about the edge rush. I do think Calais Campbell is huge on that interior defensive line. Derek Wolfe also adds some pass rush ability. And I know you got Matthew Judon on one edge. My only questions are on, that other edge rush. I mean, right now, like you said, you have a great secondary. But I mean, even the best secondary, if the defense isn't getting home, they're going to let up at some point. So, I still got the Ravens being 12-4, one of the best teams in the NFL next year.
Yeah, and I think we're going to find out who the true identity of the team is, especially offensively. Our first 3 games are against the Browns, then we go to Texans, and then we play the Chiefs. So, whether we're 3-0 or, 0-3, we're going to figure out who this team is. But luckily after that, the schedule does lighten up. So, we might lose the Chiefs, we might lose the Texans, but if we can come out with 2 wins, we're going to be fine for the rest of the season. So let's move on to now the playoffs, Joe. You have where are my notes? So you're 1-7. You have the Chiefs, then the Ravens, then the Patriots, then the Colts, then the Broncos, Raiders, and Titans. How do you see the AFC playoffs coming out? I mean, I'm going to ask you again, do you see the Broncos, Raiders, or Titans making a deep wildcard playoff run, or do you think it's going to be a pretty similar Chiefs, Ravens, Patriots kind of final 3, final 4 teams?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be those kind of couple teams, Chiefs, Ravens, probably in the AFC Championship. I mean, I could see the Titans or the Broncos stealing a game or 2. I mean, the Titans, they nearly did make it all the way. I mean, with that ball control offense and that great defense, that's how you win in December. So I could definitely see the Titans making a move like that again. Or the Raiders, honestly, since they have one of the best offenses in the NFL, or best offensive lines in the NFL. I mean, that's how you're gonna win in December with the run game. So with Josh Jacobs behind that offensive line, I think he's gonna have a great end to the season. If either of those teams can just dominate the clock and play well on defense, then I could see both of those teams definitely making a push, potentially getting to the AFC Championship. But I think at the end of the day, both the Chiefs and Ravens are just the 2 best teams in the AFC and possibly the 2 best teams in the NFL. I think that honestly, I would rather see those 2 teams in the Super Bowl than what we saw last year. I think the Ravens are better than the 49ers. So I feel like the AFC Championship, of the Chiefs and the Ravens is the AFC Championship we deserved last year, and the AFC Championship we're going to see this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. My one through 7 are the Chiefs, Ravens, Patriots, Colts, same top four as you, and then my wild cards are the Steelers, Bills, and Texans. I do have a couple of upsets in the wild card. I think I had the Steelers beating the Colts, and I had the Bills beating the Patriots. But then ultimately, it's going to be Ravens, Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Joe, this is finally the year, and call me Homer if you want, but the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl. We're finally going to beat Mahomes. We're going to beat them in Week 3, Monday Night Football. We're going to beat them again in the AFC Championship game. You know, at home, on the road, doesn't matter. We're going to win. And so you have another repeat of the Super Bowl. You have Chiefs, 49ers. Is that correct?
That is. I mean, you know, I just can't pick against Mahomes until I see, you know, proof otherwise. I mean, this man has the best offensive weapons in the NFL at every level. You know, they have a phenomenal coaching staff, and Andy Reid is the one calling the plays for him and just making his job so much easier. You know, I don't see how any team can outscore them. I mean, when you have a 24-point cushion and still they still come all the way back like it's nothing, you know, like I don't think I've ever seen an offense like this. So I'm not picking against the Chiefs. I've got Mahomes going to the Super Bowl, beating the 49ers again, and just making Kyle Shanahan cry once again after a Super Bowl.
Well, my Super Bowl is a little bit different. I do have the Ravens from the AFC. I have the Saints from the NFC. It's going to be a fun, exciting game. Unfortunately, Drew Brees is not going to get another Super Bowl. The Ravens are taking home the Lombardi Trophy again. We're going to have to pay Lamar $100 billion like the Chiefs did with Mahomes, but that's fine. But Lamar is going to get the Super Bowl he so desires, which I love about him. So I have the Ravens beating the Saints. You got the Chiefs beating the 49ers again. So that's a wrap in the AFC and the Super Bowl. Now, Joe, tonight we got the first game of the NFL season. We have the Texans and the Chiefs. Let's talk about that real quickly. Let me pull up the current gambling lines. I believe the Chiefs are favored by 9 points, and the over-under is 54.5. So what do you see happening in this game? Do you see the Chiefs blowing them out, or do you see the Texans kind of making this a good game? It's the banner-raising ceremony.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see the Chiefs winning this game easily. I don't see – I feel like right now the Texans are healthy, you know, right now. They're healthy for week 1. I think Deshaun Watson's going to make some plays with Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks at that speed, and they're gonna score some points. But I could see this game being like 24-42 Chiefs. And, you know, while it'll be a lot of points, the Chiefs are going to win it handily. And I don't think there's going to be any question that, you know, after this game, they're the most dominant team in the NFL once again, and the NFL should be ready.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think there's going to be a lot of points. Definitely going to bet the over 54.5. I mean, that's 30 points per team, a little bit less than that. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, especially without fans. It could be a little bit of a faster tempo game, you know, especially with hearing all the signals and everything. So I'm excited to see how that kind of works in the NFL. And then, you know, I think the Chiefs are going to win pretty handily, and they're going to win pretty comfortably. I do like the Texans +9, though. I think it's just going to be one of those games where the Chiefs are just always kind of constantly up by 10, and then probably going to get a backdoor cover from the Texans. So I'm riding Texans +9. I'm riding the over, and football is back, Joe. Are you excited?
Let's go, baby. Let's get it going. We're finally here. Didn't know if it was going to happen, and we're happening.
It's happening. Well, that's a wrap for episode 2 of the Flea Flicker with Timmy B and Joey D, or I guess Joey D and Timmy B will work on that. Episode 3, we're going to do our picks of the week's game, so be on the look at that for Sunday morning. How to be notified? Good question, Joe. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, then ring the bell and be notified for the Flea Flicker with Timmy B and Joey D, and we will see you again on Sunday morning. Joe, any final words?
Hey, let's get this, man. We didn't know if we were going to have football this year. It's been a tough year for everyone. You know, football is back. Let's, you know, have a great year, but, you know, just, you know, not forget what else is going on in the world right now, and not let football, you know, kind of take us away from, you know, the other issues that we're facing as a society. You know, we can't let it distract us from, you know, the bigger issues that, you know, are at hand right now.
Definitely agree. Well, great words, Joe. I'm done. Subscribe, like, notify. We'll see you Sunday morning for our game picks. And until then, let's enjoy the game later tonight.
Let's go. Have a good night.